Hello friends, and welcome to your yoga class. I know it's a little different setting. I'm coming from my house, broadcasting. I wasn't able to make it into the studio this week. But yeah, it's kind of fun being back filming in my living room, which is what I did back in the good old beginning days of COVID back in March when things started shutting down. I still wanted to put videos out there, so I started filming in my living room, and it was just so interesting how nervous and awkward and unprepared I felt, and I just stressed over every single little thing, and I was so uncomfortable. And now it's just funny to come back to this. I was so glad when we were offered this space to be able to teach and film down at Public Coffee. And so to come back to this, it's just funny of how scary it was for me to step into that uncertainty, to step into that unknown, to step outside of my comfort zone. And so I, doing all of that and then coming back to it now and be like, oh yeah, this is just kind of how yoga classes are right now. And the online platform seems to be kind of the trend, especially as we get into colder months, and yoga at the park and stuff like that is no longer a thing. So it's just funny to reflect back on things that once felt so daunting and scary and overwhelming and just full of uncertainty can become commonplace if you just step into it and continue to show up. So that's just kind of an idea, a little theme I want to play with today. And since I get to practice from home, don't have to worry about shuffling people around the studio, I would like to do a legs up the wall practice. So for some of you, this may be stepping into an uncertainty, stepping out of your comfort zone, that you may have never done this sort of practice before. Maybe something new to you or something that you haven't done for a while. So take some time to get yourself situated. So you want to be able to have a nice flat wall to put the legs up. So you are going to spend most of the time on the back with the booty facing the wall, legs up the wall. You're going to want to get your mat and take it lengthwise right up against the wall. And gather some props as well. We're going to be, doing various things with the hips and the legs, some twisting stuff. So it might feel nice to have a cushion or bolster, blanket, something like that. Something where maybe if we're twisting, the legs could rest on, or if the low back gets painful, you can slide it underneath for a little support. So take some time to set up your little situation. Gather all your props. And one thing I haven't done is filmed in here as the sun is setting, so I'll try to keep an eye on the lighting to make sure we're good. But when you're ready, we're going to come up, sit down against the wall, scooch the booty as close as you can to the wall, and then we're going to extend the legs up. Take some time to kind of adjust, letting the hips settle. Legs extend, they can kind of soften. If it feels better to have, you can kind of play with the position of the hips of the booty if you want the booty right up against the wall, or maybe you want to scooch it back a little bit. But take some time to just start to settle into this reclined pike pose with the support of the wall. Arms can be doing whatever feels good, alongside the body. They could rest on the belly, one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. Hopefully you guys can all see. And just start to ground here. Start to feel that solid connection of the whole back, the whole spine being supported by the earth. With the legs raised, the tops of the femurs can sink into the hip sockets, maybe getting a little more release through the low back. As you tune into that physical connection of being held and supported by the earth, start to feel the effects of the reverse circulation through the legs. Start to check in a little deeper with the body. Starting to notice any aches or pains.
then start to bring some awareness to your breath. Noticing the inhale, rising of the belly. The exhale as the belly lowers. And start to bring a little intentional breathing. And that intention can be simple observation. You can just continue to notice the breath throughout your practice, coming back to the breath when the mind starts to wander, using that as a connection to keep you grounded, keep you present, without changing anything, just simply observing the breath and its effects on the mind and on the body. If you would like to take that connection a step further, you could also bring in deep belly breathing, so a little more intentional breathing, drawing the breath in and out of the nose, letting the belly really exaggerate that rise and fall. And in Restore, you're also welcome to activate ujjayi breathing. This activation of the muscles in the back of the throat to give yourself that little audible quality. Now stay in tune with that, because especially since we're spending the majority of the time on the back, sometimes that might actually kind of trigger our nervous system, might make us feel like we can't breathe, or like that constriction is even more constricting. So we don't necessarily need to engage ujjayi breathing, but we still want to connect to it. So if ujjayi comes natural and fluid to you, even in this reclined position, then feel free to continue with that, or to connect with that, to start that up. Or just connecting to the breath, either through your deep belly breathing or through simple observation. I'm just starting to bring some awareness to the toes. Flexing them back, rooting up through the heels, and just start to spread out through the toes. See if you can create space between each little piggy. See if you can maybe move individual toes. It's kind of funny how easy and dexterous our fingers are, but when it comes to our toes, we don't quite have the same awareness in there. So just start to kind of spread out, kind of wiggle, stretching through the feet, exploring the toes and your engagement with the toes. Fantastic work. Just a few more rounds here, just kind of playing with the feet. Maybe you start to point and flex through the toes or roll out through the ankles. Or just continue exploring the movement and the spreading out of the toes. And then as you feel ready, keeping the left leg extended, toes flexed back, rooting up through the heel, we'll just start to open the right foot over towards the right. And just pause when you start to feel some natural resistance here. And this is where some props may come in handy. You could bring in a block or two to rest the leg. You could bring in your cushion or bolster. Anything kind of allow the leg to rest. as we kind of allow, it's not going to work, as we kind of allow gravity to work here. There we go. So we want to keep the hips squared. So both hip bones are connected to the ground. So as that right leg lifts, there might be a tendency to let that left hip lift as well so that we can lower that leg a little further down. Ground down through that left heel or left hip, even if that means the leg only opens, this far or less. So for some, that support of the props may not be available quite yet. But the props are also there to make sure that we don't go too deep. And when we hold poses for a long time, it does create, natural release in the body, a tendency for the body to be able to go a little deeper. But sometimes that can take us too deep. So we just want to stay aware. We want to support the body so that there can be a release of the larger muscles so we can stretch the smaller muscles. And in these long supported poses, we also get some of the effects of a yin yoga practice, where it works with and repairs the connective tissues. Continue to observe the breath in whatever way you choose. Continue to check in with the body, and while this may feel or may appear restful, my body's working. I can still definitely feel it. There's a little bit of shaking starting to happen in my outer quads. Be present to the sensations in the body. I can feel my outer right hip, there we go. And I also feel my right hip flexor. So I'm staying aware of where I'm feeling the stretch. Maybe adjusting the prop to go a little deeper or to not go as deep. Just a few more rounds of breath here. Awesome work. When you're ready, you can bring the right hand over towards the right thigh and use it to kind of help that leg come back up towards center. And then we'll just take it over to the other side. So right foot, right leg is extended straight up. Flex the right toes back. The left toes flex back as you start to open that leg out towards the left. And you can bring in props for support. The leg can press up against the wall. We want the hips grounded. So notice if that right hip starts to lift. We want to ground that back hip bone, that back of the pelvis down. So it doesn't matter how open the legs are. We're meeting our bodies as they are today. So the legs might, only be about this far, a little wider, or maybe all the way down to the ground. And every single one of those variations is right. Stay connected to the breath. And arms can be doing whatever feels right. Right now it feels good for me to spread them out into goalposts, allowing the shoulders to open, the chest to open. And continue to check in as we hold the poses longer, as gravity continues to work. Maybe adjusting your prop if it's supporting you to go deeper or to come out. And you're welcome to have your eyes closed through this practice. I should have said it at the beginning, but it's also nice to put on some gentle ambient music. Nice work. Just a couple more rounds of breath on this side. And again, as you feel ready to come out, that left hand can come to the outside of the left thigh to help it raise back up towards center. You can bend the knees, plant the feet along the wall. You can press down into the feet. Maybe it'll feel good to raise the hips up, a little moving bridge. You could also kind of wave the knee side to side. Alright, now when you're ready, we're going to re-extend through the legs, flex the toes back, open both legs up to either side. Now if you can go further than just, regular kind of V, pause at the V. And now we're just going to kind of tick-tock the legs, the hips side to side. The hip bones can lift this time, but we're just going to kind of let the legs drop over towards the right. We're keeping that same kind of V shape. When we, tilt it, it looks like an L, or, it could be smaller like a V. But we're keeping the legs the same distance, and then just kind of tick-tocking the hips side to side. Letting each leg move over and down as far as feels okay. Flex back through the toes, keeping the legs nice and active, and keep a softness in the knees. Of course, you may need to scooch the booty away from the wall a little bit to get this tick-tock through the hips. Shoulders are squared. Shoulders are staying connected to the earth. So getting a little twisting as we open through the legs. Awesome work. When you feel ready, making your way back towards center, draw the legs together, bend the knees. You may want to scooch the hips a little further back. And we're going to play with bridge pose. So the feet can be, knees can be barely bent, feet kind of high, or the feet could walk all the way down so that the heels are in line with the knees. But we don't want the feet any lower down than that. That could put too much pressure on the knees. So knees either at a 90 degree or feet a little higher. Pressing into the feet against the wall. And then slowly just start to lift the hips up. And lower back down on an exhale. This little moving bridge articulating through the spine. And you can adjust your distance away from the wall, rolling up and rolling down. You can even take the hips a little higher, coming into almost a shoulder stance, as long as you keep the pressure on the shoulder blades without putting any pressure in the neck. We'll take a couple minutes of exploration here. So you're welcome, if it feels good with the hips raised, to pause here and breathe. You could interlace the hands. You could even tuck the shoulders underneath, just to give yourself a little more cushion there, a little more support. Getting inverted all night tonight. Hips can lift, they can pause, or you can lower down if that movement, that articulation through the spine is feeling awesome. You could also just pause with the hips releasing to the ground, feet pressing into the wall. Got about another minute here. You can also slide a prop underneath the hips for a little supported bridge. 5 more rounds here. Fantastic work. If you've got a prop underneath, go ahead and remove it nice and slow, setting the hips all the way back down. Nice work. Now we're going to shimmy the hips back towards the wall. In your choice, if you want the hips. Oh, I'm actually going to readjust my mat there. So yeah, you can play with how close the hips are to the wall. Extending the legs, flexing the toes back. Kind of any movements, kind of reset from that a little back bending, a little bit of arching in our bridge. And then we're going to take a reclined cobbler's pose. So we're going to bring, actually, before we take that, let's take legs one at a time. So I am sorry, but we are shimmying back away from the wall. We're just, creeping and crawling along the ground tonight. Okay, so we're coming back to where our bridge is. I should have kept us here. So we've got the knees bent, heels in line with the knees. We'll extend the right leg up towards the sky, flex the right toes back. Turn the right toes out so we get that external rotation. Bend in the right knee, crossing right ankle over left knee. Opening up through that right knee. The right hand can come to the knee or thigh and gently press that right knee away, getting a little more external rotation, a little more opening through that hip. And then here again, you can play with the placement of the foot. You could extend the left foot a little higher up, which is going to lower the knee and make the stretch a little more gentle, may not be as intense. The lower you put the foot or the closer you scooch the booty, the more that's going to draw the left knee towards the chest and going to increase that sensation in the outer right hip. So stay here, flexing the right toes back and feeling into this opening in the right hip, right outer hip, that is. Allowing the external noises to be a part of the experience. My neighbor likes to blast bass with not the greatest music, and I'm hoping that you guys can't hear it too much. I'm hoping that the microphone just picks up my voice and not the bad EDM bass. But if it does, just a nice reminder that we can't control what happens out there. Can't control other people, can't control other circumstances. We simply have control over ourselves, our thoughts, our responses, our actions. Awesome work. A few more rounds of breath here. Ooh, this one feels so good. The last few rounds, if it would feel good, you could even press the foot into the wall and then lift the hips up and kind of give them a little shimmy side to side. Maybe a little working, a little opening through the hips, just if that feels okay. If that creates any pain in the low back, or you don't want to put forth that much effort, you want this to be a little more relaxing, a little more cooling, then definitely not necessary here. But if you wanted, you could play with a little moving bridge the last few rounds of breath. When you feel ready, we'll take this into a twist. So it's your choice if you'd like to take a twisted pigeon or a twisted pigeon. In this figure 4, just allowing the right foot to drop over towards the ground. Now you will have to adjust the placement of the left foot. That is going to continue a little intensity in the outside of the right hip. If that doesn't feel awesome, then before you take your twist, uncross through the legs and then just let the knees drop over. Now, whether it's the knees or the foot lowering down, again, you can bring in props. You can let the foot or the knees lower down onto a prop or towards the ground. It is okay for that right hip to raise, but we want the shoulders nice and squared. Also might feel like a nice little relief on the low back since we've been lying on the back for quite some time. Breathe into the belly and notice how that feels. You should still be able to get full, deep belly breaths, even though the sensation will be different. But if it feels forced or stagnant, or like you can't quite get that breath down into the belly, then you've probably twisted a little too far. You can untwist slightly until you can reconnect to some deep belly breathing with ease. About 7 or so rounds of breath here. Awesome work. As you start to feel ready, we'll just slowly start to untwist. Bring that right hip back towards the ground And then take any movements that would feel good between sides, maybe extending through the legs, opening them up. You can plant the feet, take some windshield wipers. Anything that would feel fantastic here. And then we'll start to set up our pigeon, our reclined pigeon or figure 4 on the other side. So again, we want to plant the feet on the ground, knees bent. The knees are either in line with the heels or the heels are higher. We'll extend the left leg up towards the sky, flex the toes back. Externally rotate so the toes turn out towards the left. Bend the left knee as we cross the left ankle over the right knee, and then open up through that left knee. Left hand can come to the knee or thigh to gently press it open. And again, you can play with the positioning of that right foot. The closer down towards the glute it is, and the closer the booty is towards the wall, the more intense that stretch is going to be. So the more you bring that right knee in towards the chest. And on the inverse, the more you take that right knee away from the chest, the easier or more gentle this will be. So you could walk that foot up so that you kind of decrease the intensity, or walk the foot down to increase the intensity. One's not better than the other. It's whatever feels right for you. Notice any differences in each side. We work each side to bring balance, to work both sides, but we don't want to treat both sides the same. We don't want to approach them as being identical. Each side is definitely related. They're brothers, sisters, but they're not twins. So we don't want to treat them as so. We want to treat them as individuals with different emotions, different expressions, different sensations. Keeping the left toes flexed back. Again, if it would feel good with a little exploration of pressing the foot into the ground and lifting the hips up and back down. If that would tickle your fancy, go for it. If not, don't do it. About three more rounds of breath here. Nice work. And then as you feel ready, we'll start to take this into a twist. So if you want to take a twisted figure 4, move my bolster to the other side so that I have some cushion there. And you can just let that left knee or left foot come over towards the right. It's okay if that left heel lifts, but we want to have the shoulders squared as possible. If having the legs in that figure 4 is not feeling awesome on that outer left hip, uncross through the legs and take your twist that way. And the knees or foot could land on a block, bolster, cushion, anything there for some support. Arms can reach out into a T or into goal post if that would feel awesome. And again, we're inviting that left shoulder towards the ground, but don't feel like it has to touch. And if it does feel better to have it a little more raised and to lay a little more onto that right side, a little more gentle twist, absolutely take that. Or if you do want to have the shoulders ground down, but that's a little too intense, then just play with your props. You know, you can turn a bolster on the side, you could stack up a few different things. Definitely, you know, bring in your own support system.
Oh, 5 more rounds of breath here.
Fantastic work. As you feel ready, we'll slowly just start to untwist, bringing the legs back up towards center. Now, this time for reals, let's shimmy our booty back towards the wall, but only far enough as you want to go to come into reclined cobblers with the feet on the wall. So the bottoms of the feet are going to come to touch, so the knife edge of both feet are on the wall. So as you open up through the knees, that brings an opening through the hips. Now, the closer you scooch the booty, the more intense, closer you scooch the booty to the wall, the more intense that opening's gonna be. And the more you scooch the booty back from the wall, the more gentle that's going to be. Now, since we are pressing against the feet to kind of get that opening, get a little leverage, you could also bring the hands to the knees and gently, ever so gently, press them open. Of course, the closer you let the heels sink down towards the root, again, that will bring another level of intensity. So the feet could be all the way up, knees just softened as they open. Or could be a little more intense. And if the booty scooched all the way against the wall, maybe the hands could even come to the ankles or on the knees.
Awesome work. We'll take about another minute or so here. This is actually feeling really good, so let's stay for one more minute. Check back in with the breath when the mind starts to wander. And maybe take this moment to reflect on a time when you stepped into the unknown. When you were terrified, overwhelmed, bombarded, uncertain, scared, and you stepped forward anyways. You showed up.
You did it. But we all have more than one of those incidences. And then to be able to look back and think, why was I so afraid of this? Why did I doubt myself so much? Why did I almost let uncertainty keep me from moving forward? It's pretty cool when we can face our fears and move through them. I think that shows true bravery, true strength. As you start to feel ready, you can again use the hands to bring the knees together, extending the legs back up towards the sky, flexing the toes back. A little tick-tock through the hips, if that would feel good. Just coming back where we started. Feeling into this. Now when you're ready, we're going to take another version of a twist. We're going to have straight legs this time. But we're going to first play with that little kind of tick-tocking with the legs that we did near the beginning. But instead of having the legs in a V or an L shape, we're just going to keep the legs glued together. So you may want to scooch a little bit away from the wall or not. It could also be there for support. So we're going to inhale, lengthen through the spine, flex the toes back. On the exhale, just slowly start to drop the legs over towards the right. It's okay if that left hip raises. And then we'll come back up through center. Legs could separate there. Mine just naturally did. Apparently they don't want to stay together. That's a little too active for a restore class, apparently, is what my body's telling me. And just start to drop the legs over towards the left. And back up through center. So maybe we don't let the legs drop all the way down. That's where it seems to, where my body is like, is that what we're supposed to be doing right now? So just kind of letting the legs tick-tock side to side. And as you can tell, the further you let the legs go, the more core engagement it will take to bring them back. So your choice, how far the legs go. Just a little moving twist here. Hands can be doing whatever you need for support. I realize I'm like gripping my banister to be able to assist in getting my legs back. Awesome work. If this tick-tocking isn't feeling great, we're going to settle into a twist. So whenever you're ready, we're just going to let the legs together drop over towards the right. And that left hip can definitely raise. And maybe there are props there to catch the legs as you rock them over. Just getting a twist. I'm feeling a little bit of a stretch, little side stretch in the low back, low glute. A little bit up into the obliques. Again, we're inviting that left shoulder towards the ground, but it definitely doesn't need to touch. We just want a little opening in the chest. But you can maintain that opening and still raise that left shoulder on off the ground, rolling a little more onto the right side of the body if that more gentle option feels best for you. Awesome work. And when you're ready, we'll just bring the legs back up towards center. If you want to take a couple rounds of those tick-tocks, softening through the knees or bend them deep. And then when it feels right, letting the knees release over towards the left, taking another variation of a twist. This one does feel a little different. Just a few rounds of breath here. Awesome. Mark, as you feel ready, we'll just start to draw the legs back up towards center. Take your last several rounds of breath with the legs extended. Check in with the body, notice how you're feeling. There may be some tenderness in the back since we've been lying down on it for a good chunk of time. So be aware of that as you slowly start to roll over to one side. Press your way up. And we'll find ourselves in a tabletop. It's little hands and knees action. Staying aware of any tenderness, any sensitivity in the hips or in the low back. Just kind of sway the hips side to side. Maybe some gentle cat-cows, arching and rounding. And then after you've taken a little bit of exploration here, we're gonna use the wall for a little bit of kind of some gentle back bending. So we're gonna come down to the belly. I'll try not to yell into the microphone. And then if it feels okay, with bent knees, scooch the hips back so that the feet, the tops of the feet, so toes are pointed up, can press up against the wall. Now it's your choice if the knees are further away from the wall or if you scooch the knees all the way up to the wall so that the heels are in line with the knees. Oh, that's a big scooch. All right, so this is naturally bringing in a little bit of activation in the low back. And then we're going to come up to a cobra or let's say a sphinx pose. So we're going to come onto the forearms. Start with the arms extended, and then just slowly start to walk the forearms back till you kind of get to the right height where you can still lift and extend up through the crown of the head. Chest comes forward. So we're stretching through the front side of the body. We're working a little back bending, giving the spine a little articulation to work with since we've been lying in a neutral spine for quite some time. So again, it is your choice how deep you want to take this. The elbows could walk all the way back till they are directly underneath the shoulders drawing away from the ears, chest drawing forward, or again, more gentle, elbows are more forward, or you could even release the head down onto resting knuckles or all the way to the ground. Because even just lying flat on the belly creates a little back bending. About 3 more rounds of breath. Fantastic work. As you feel ready, we'll slowly start to kind of shimmy our way forward, bringing the feet away from the wall. Lots of shimmying today. And then we'll get to the point where we can press back up to hands and knees. Take any movements through the spine that would feel good. Get a little resetting there. And then gently start to send the hips back. Taking a child's pose. Ooh, nice counter stretch there. If it would feel good, flip the palms up. Let the shoulders roll out. Release the head and chest down. Open up through the back. Allowing the back to expand. Opening up between the ribs. Chest releasing down towards the ground, allowing gravity to press. As you feel ready, nice and slow, start to walk the hands back as the chest raises up. We're coming up to a hero's pose on the knees. If this does not feel fantastic on the knees, then feel free to take a seat in whatever way feels right for you, comfortable seated position. And we're just gonna roll out through the neck. Ooh, yeah, take it nice and slow. These could be as big or as small as you'd like. You can pause at any point if you find a particularly sticky area that you want to breathe into, or maybe even bring a hand or two in for a little massage. Reverse the direction of those circles if you haven't already. Ooh, my cousin It hair is tickling my nose. Fantastic work. As you feel ready, just start to explore any final movements, any final stretches, anything that the body's craving, anything that'll kind of help you round out your practice. And then we'll start to make our way towards our Shavasana, towards our final relaxation. So you're welcome to take that on your back. You could send the legs up the wall again, start or finish the way we started. You could take traditional Shavasana on the back, legs extended, toes turned out, palms turned up. If you've had enough on the back tonight, you could lie on your side in a fetal position, either side. You could lie on the belly if that feels good. You could come into a child's pose, or you could come up into a seated meditation. So lots of different options for you to explore for your final relaxation, your final pose. But again, take as much time as you'd like to explore any final movements, I think that would feel fantastic. And then using props if you'd like to set up your shavasana, or anything you'd like to do. This is your time, your space. Do what feels good. As you get yourself into whatever final relaxation pose you choose tonight, allow yourself to surrender. Allow the body to release. Allow the breath to flow. Allow the mind to settle. And take a moment to reflect on the first time you stepped on your yoga mat. How did you feel? Were you nervous, scared, worried, afraid of looking foolish or awkward? Were you excited? Did you feel supported? Maybe this is your first yoga class. How do you feel? And if this isn't your first yoga class, reflect on how different yoga feels now. That you worked through that uncertainty. You worked through, well, not through the awkwardness, because yoga's always going to be awkward. And perhaps you're still working through the uncertainty. I know I am in my practice. So if that example isn't exactly speaking to you, just reflect back on that time that you chose to face your fears. You chose to step into uncertainty. And you got to reap the rewards. Allow those thoughts and feelings to settle into you as you surrender in your final pose. As you allow all of the great work that you've just done to integrate into the mind and into the body. As you allow all of the intention that you set forth to work its way, to weave its way through the magic of the universe and to come to fruition. If you have the time to dedicate to your shavasana, please do. Please stay as you are, giving yourself the gift of this time to just be.
As you feel ready, gently bring some movement back into the body. If you're lying down and not already there, slowly start to roll onto one side of the body. And gently pressing your way back up to a comfortable seat, no rush. Whenever you feel ready, I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands. And take a moment before we close to simply offer yourself some gratitude. The gratitude for stepping on your mat, for facing uncertainty of what class would be like, for allowing yourself to move and breathe and connect. Thank you so much from my home to yours for allowing me to come into your home this evening with the gift of yoga. I have left a link to my Venmo in the class if you would like to donate. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic evening. I see you. I honor you. I bow to you. Namaste.